Welcome, everyone. Very excited to be here with you today. As you join us, do let us know where you are today in the world. Are you in the UK, USA? Which continent are you in? We'd love to hear from you. So we are live, and do feel free to say hi to us in the chat. My name is Jenny Garrett. I'm an award-winning career coach, author, and leadership trainer. And together with my team, we deliver impactful development to support those from underrepresented groups to progress at work, as well as supporting all leaders to make inclusion happen. My latest and recently award-winning practical and empowering book is called Equality versus Equity: Tackling Issues of Race in the Workplace. I want to say a big thank you on behalf of my social enterprise, Rocking Your Teens. Any donations that you have made towards this webinar will go towards increasing resilience, inspiring, and raising aspirations in teenagers. And if anyone wants to find out more about Rocking Your Teens, we will drop the URL into the chat, and that will be my colleague Tanya who will be dropping that in. She'll also be looking out for any questions and comments that you have during today's webinar to make sure that we don't miss anything. Now, what are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about the paradox of productivity. I definitely feel that we have a world obsessed with productivity, but could doing less actually achieve more? I really hope so. This session today challenges the cult of busyness and explores how prioritizing well-being can unlock greater focus and creativity. We have a wonderful expert panel who are going to discuss things like the impact of stress and burnout, how to set boundaries and make self-care a priority, how to cultivate mindfulness and resilience, and also create a culture of well-being in our organizations. So today I'm joined by Obehi, Marie, and Jackie. They are coaches all listed in the Diverse Executive Coach Directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from the global majority, or you might use the language of those from ethnically diverse backgrounds. They are coaches that I would vouch for. They're highly experienced, they're fully qualified, and they have an immense track record. So please do check out the Diverse Coach Directory and their pages in particular. And again, we'll drop the link for the Coach Directory in the chat for you. So the format of this session is that Obehi, Marie, and Jackie will briefly introduce themselves. I'll start off by asking them some questions, and then we'll open it up to you for your questions and reflections. And as I said, we'll keep an eye on the chat throughout. This is a conversation between us all. So if you have ideas, thoughts, questions, add them in. Let's have this conversation between all of us and use our joint knowledge. So I'm going to start with Marie. Please do introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Jenny. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marie Loney. I'm an executive well-being coach with a background in fashion, education, and business. Throughout my career, I'd experienced highly pressurized environments where I was feeling overwhelmed with work and impossible deadlines. And that led to repeated exhaustion and burnout. I'm sure that resonates with some of you as well. Then I decided enough was enough, and I founded Glow Consultancy London. And I support leaders manage stress, boost productivity, and achieve holistic work-life balance. Excuse me for my voice. Through executive coaching, facilitation, and training, I support leaders to develop positive and emotional intelligence, adopt effective communication skills, and foster collaboration so that they can build true trust with their teams and networks. I also tap into my creative side using techniques such as drawing and collaging to bring a unique twist to my coaching practice. Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks so much, Marie. And I think an act of self-care will be getting yourself a glass of water. That would be a good thing to do. Yeah. Support yourself. Lovely. Fantastic. Jackie, please, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. Really good to be here today. And can I just check? Am I on repetition? Can you hear an
We
echo?
can't hear an echo, but you are going in and out a little bit, Jackie. Yes.
Oh,
Do you
I'm wondering what's happening there.
maybe have you got some headphones? Try that, I would say.
Okay.
If you've
I
got
haven't
some.
got the headphones to hand.
Okay. Well, carry on speaking. We could hear you.
Okay. So, as I was saying, I'm Jackie Halder. I'm an author. I've written 3 or 4 non-fiction titles, really all around self-care and well-being. One on writing, one on coaching, couple of illustrated writing maps. And I also am a leadership and wellbeing coach. And I'm also the founder of the School of Journaling and the Tuesday early morning writing space for women. And I'm going to stop there because I know that I am on echo and I'm going to try and do something about it.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I definitely recommend maybe leaving and coming back and trying again. Thank you so much. But we did hear what you said. And over to you, Obehi.
Hi everyone, I'm Obehi Alafoje. I'm a psychologist and executive coach, and I specialize in workplace mental health and well-being. I help organizations create environments where people can thrive, not just survive, by tackling issues like burnout, developing resilient and sustainable productivity. The topic is particularly close to my heart because as a business owner, I've had to learn how to balance productivity with well-being myself. And I've also worked closely with women entrepreneurs who have ADHD, neurodivergent, helping them develop strategies to work with their brains and not against them. So I love working and supporting individuals and organizations in finding ways to do less, but achieve more without it affecting their mental health and their well-being. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation today.
Thank you so much. And I want to say hello to those who are joining us. I can see Vimbanshi, Uzamaka. Apologies if I'm pronouncing your names incorrectly. Kristen, I hope your ears were burning. I was talking about you at the weekend. Junior, always wonderful to see you. Garrett, I love the point, slow down to speed up. Thank you. People telling us that they're in cloudy Brighton. Hello, Janice, great to see you. Hello, Gladys, great to see you here. So thank you all so much. And a great top tip from Tanya as well. You can turn on captions on LinkedIn, so that can also help you. Hi, Martha from Limehouse also. So great to have everyone here. You are all welcome. Really happy to hear your tips as well as those from the coaches who are here. And something I didn't mention was the hashtag for today's event, and that is less is more. So you can connect in with all of us. You can connect to the Diverse Executive Coach Directory page, but please do use that hashtag less is more. I think maybe it's a mantra we should all be thinking of as well. So my first question to our wonderful coaches, and I hope you heard from their experience, they have so much to offer, and also considering different aspects of our intersection of identity, including thinking about neurodivergence here. Many of us feel pressure to constantly do more in order to prove our value. In your experience with your coaching clients, How have you helped them shift this mindset and convince them or their teams or those more senior than them that prioritizing well-being actually leads to better outcomes? Do you have any specific examples? I'm going to start with you, Abehi.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of mindset, I think which is the point, isn't it? Is like, how do you get people to, or leaders or yourself, to believe that actually spending more time on your well-being and getting it to think about and how that would improve your productivity is key. Because I think sometimes you're like, no, just keep working and it'll catch up, we'll get it done, we just need to keep going. But actually, the thing that I do mostly with coaching individuals to get them to shift perspective are two things about what productivity really is. So it really means it's not about the time that we spend on activities per se, because 24 hours in a day, we all got it, right? But we can't use them all because we have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to do things, we have to hang out with people, we have to do things. Therefore, we cannot exhaust the 24 hours, however we try. It's not sustainable. So the first mindset I get people to think about is productivity is not about time, but rather about the energy that you've generated or the energy that you just happen to have at any given time, and the focus, intentional focus you've decided to use, allocated to a specific activity or a task, and doing that in a specific time frame. So that means if you're well rested and you feel good, that you might use and have generated enough energy, you might use 30 minutes to do a piece of work that would otherwise have taken you 2 hours because you were a high level of stress going on with you or you're tired. So that's one of the first things I get leaders to consider. It's not the time. So the idea that something needs to be done in half an hour or an hour, not quite how that works. It's more to do with, do they have enough energy and focus to that thing that will determine whether it got done. So I don't know if that answered that question, but that's how I like to start, get people to think of it slightly differently.
Yeah, it completely resonates. And I know if I want to do some writing, it has to be first thing in the morning. I'm fresh,
I
I'm
get.
energized. If I tried to do that at 4 o'clock in the evening, maybe I'd still be struggling at 8 and not delivering. So I think knowing yourself well enough to know your energy points, knowing your best times to do things is such a good point, Obehi, maybe one that a lot of people do not think about, actually. This idea of
Yeah.
where is your energy at? Jackie, what are your reflections on the question?
Well, first of all, Behi, I really love this idea of we think it's about time, but it's actually about energy. And I think that's a really good place to start. And I thought I would come in from just sharing a little bit about my background. My background is from youth and community work, and I was schooled in the practice of reflection. So I'm hardwired for reflection. So it's something that I bring and is integral to my work as a coach. So I bring this as a practice into my coaching work. And what I have seen is that this has greatly impacted so many of the leaders that I work with. And I want to contextualize that because I think for me and what the leaders that I'm working with, what they have seen is that by becoming more reflective in their day, no matter how busy and demanding, no matter what complexity they're up against, we can see that there are several strands and ways in which a reflective practice, which doesn't require a great deal of time, can make a difference and really raise your visibility and your productivity as a leader. For example, if we take reflective practice and we think about some of those threads, the content of being reflective or the outcomes of being reflective means it had an impact on the kind of speaking engagements that you might do. It might contribute to writing blogs or articles or newsletters. It might create a space where you think differently about your teams and what's going on in your organization. So you are coming to your work better equipped. So it impacts productivity and performance. But also, I think something that we don't often go into a great deal about and talk about is about your personal thought leadership. Who are you and what do you stand for as a leader? And I think these are all the things that have been reflective and having, helping clients shift their mindset and not just be on the go all the time can make a difference. And I had one of those moments this morning. Just very quickly, I was wanting to share. I had a client, we were finishing our 6 sessions that we've done. She's very, very senior in a major global media company. And we were just talking about what is she really taken away from the coaching. And there were so many things that she started to listen to say. And then as she continued, she said, do you know the most important thing that I have gained from this coaching is learning how to make space to reflect. When I came to the coaching 6 months ago, I wasn't reflecting. But what I have seen is the difference that reflecting does to the quality of my thinking. It's given her space to think about her team. It's given her time to think about strategically how she wants to be experienced in the organization. And so she started to really list all the different ways in which that reflective practice has made a difference to her and how she feels. She's more happier, she's more satisfied, but her performance, the quality of it has changed.
Thank you so much. Great, really insights into the power of coaching and the power of space for reflection. And sometimes we feel we don't have time to reflect, but actually that we're being short-sighted when we do that, because actually it may save us time and save us a lot of other things as well, say wasting time on the wrong things. Marie, love your reflections on this question.
So just to add, reflections, I love that point, as well as energy. Energy is key to that. But one of the ideas that I'd like to float is around modeling and healthy modeling behaviors. So a leader, primarily a leader, is in a good position to champion something like modeling. But if they're not in that position, then someone in their team can do that. That's about visibly prioritizing maybe balance, so such as clear work boundaries. So you're going to start work at a certain time, finish work at a certain time. And of course, there's always a gray area because life doesn't always happen, work like that. When do you take breaks? I advocate taking lots of breaks throughout the day. Don't necessarily adhere to that every single day, but I'm flexible in that space as well. And as well as being open about discussing your workload, because it used to be a badge of honor with your workload. I've got lots to do, I'm busy, busy, busy. It kind of made us feel important. But then we started to understand that having so much to do was stressing us out and we weren't being efficient enough or productive enough. So then sometimes we can feel when we're not actually discussing that or want to discuss it with people because it might make us feel that we're in a position, a weaker position. But it's important to be open and actually talk about our workloads, because when we do that, we create permission for others to follow suit as well. So with one of my clients who had challenges with mounting workloads, they were up against lots of deadlines. They created an opportunity to speak to their manager to find out what is urgent, what needs to be done now. And in that situation, I would say, I asked them to ask themselves, what is needed now? What do you need to do now? So that they could identify and prioritize which tasks that they needed to do, which were most urgent. And that kind of starts to relieve some pressure. And when you relieve some pressure, you're more able to complete your task effectively. And then it's also a bit of a relief, and you can gain some confidence and some energy around that as well.
Yeah, can I just say, I wanted to add to this point that the badge of honor thing, because for a long time, this is why it's important to leaders to understand this, because for a long time, you have people who they might be productive, get the work done in a shortest amount of time, and then it looked like they've got time to take on more work. So all of a sudden, it was almost punitive for people who found a smarter way to do things. I know that from the industry that I used to work with health. Once you're done with your things with your client work, all of a sudden you're like, okay, you can take on 2 more cases. So it's almost like the person who was smarter in managing how they did their work, how they clear their admin. So that's why it's important for leaders to know just because someone had managed to do it, they shouldn't be penalized for doing that. Like that should be an example. So that brings me back to the energy conversation we were having before, because the example when we talk about what does your energy level mean, we talk about reflective. What does that look like on a scale? And we can measure this because everybody's got this circadian rhythm. So we're not all morning people or night people just trying to figure out where that fits. So as a team, if you can do this with your team, getting them to measure, and it's easy to do it. You just after the weekend, figure out when you're waking up. So you don't wake yourself up with an alarm clock. And that's what I would do with my clients, right? You don't wake up with an alarm clock. So pick a Saturday, some day that you don't have to. Obviously, if you have small children, sorry about that. But the point is, it allows you to wake up normally without an alarm clock, because then you can see what your energy does across the day. You can notice the dip. You can do this across the week to measure it. So with a team, I will get them to do this because I want their managers to also have it. To say, right, there is the link for everybody. When you overlay, you can find out for a team, particularly I worked with, majority of them were morning people. And yet they were having morning meetings at the time when everybody's energy was highest. The waste of the energy. So that allowed them to be able to shift their meeting later in the day so that people can come in and just start the work. So a good way to mention that is the idea of this badge of honor, people being busy, is because actually it was almost being rewarded. The minute you say you finished your work and you got it all done, it looks like you now have more stuff to do, especially if you can't control your workload. So I just wanted to mention that because not everybody is in the same position as business owners who can decide what they want to do, right?
Thank you.
Can I add to that? Can I add to that, Jenny? So it's really important to remember that everyone is different. So if you're looking at clients who are maybe neurodiverse, they have this unique energy pattern, as we all do, but there's some sort of sensory sensitivities they might have. They might have challenges with focusing as well. So if we look at the modeling, that's quite strict, one size fits all. But what we have to understand and recognize that I'm going to get my words out, productivity looks different for everyone. So when you have somebody who needs maybe a session when they're working, they need that deep kind of work flow, and that might be for an hour, then that's what they need to do. And then they might want to get up and move, or they might need background noise, or they might need visual cues to stay engaged as well. So we have to ask or be aware of what works for each person.
I think these are such good points because so often when you're doing that work, other people can't see it. When you're reflecting, other people cannot see you doing that reflection, but it is still work. And I really do like the work of Cal Newport and his book, Deep Work. And I think his second book is called Slow Productivity, because it is this invisible time in your own time based on your learning style, your rhythms. Yeah, that is what makes the difference. But not all of that work is visible.
Great points. Thank you. Thank you so much. And that was just the first question. I'm not sure we're going to get through them all. There are a couple of things that I would like to add as well, that sometimes I think as leaders, as individuals, we are waiting for permission. We're waiting for someone to say, oh, leave early on a Friday because you've worked so hard, take your lunch break, or take some time out to think strategically. And actually, sometimes you don't need that permission. Sometimes you've just got to take it for yourself and no one's going to argue with it. But actually, the more you give, the more organizations want. And sometimes it's about you withholding and thinking, I need something for me so that I can give even more. So do check that. You sometimes think you want permission, you need permission, but you don't. Actually, your senior, your line manager will be quite happy for you just to take what you need. And I think that Jackie's mentioned a couple of fantastic books, but there's a great book as well, in addition, called Do Important Work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes we're chasing urgent and we're ticking off email tick. Instant gratification. I've responded to 10 of my emails, but the important work you needed to do required half an hour of concentration and would take you so much further. So really thinking about, actually, am I doing what's important, not just what's urgent, and actually what's the most important thing I could do today, because I think it'll give you more satisfaction as well.
Yeah. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because coming back to that first example that I used, I think that's the underlying thing that this leader was able to really pull out, was that she because of the reflective practice, and she was expressing how she was reflecting over her vacation, she's able to really identify what are the important things, what are the things that are making her more impactful, what's increasing and changing the dynamics of her relationships. Where does she need to put her energy and her focus? Yeah, it's such an important one, that differentiation between important and urgent. And often we don't get that when we're just on the treadmill.
No, we don't. Thank you. I just want to say a hello to a few people. Hello, Karen from London. Paul, it's been a long time. Great to see you here. Hi, Carol from Buckinghamshire. No problem that you were a little bit late. And hi, Beverly from sunny Hackney. So, and Sonia.
I love it.
Yeah, and Sonia as well. Sonia says, I love that this leader's big takeaway was reflecting on how they wanted to be perceived in the organization. So, and also Vimbadashi says, are there good reflective practice models that anyone would like to share? I think we'll come back to them, but we'll hold that as a question. Thank you so much. So lovely interaction from our audience and already sharing their reflections. Because our next question is just that. What are some of the most practical and effective strategies that you've seen your clients use to set boundaries and prioritize self-care, especially in a fast-paced work environment with So we're thinking about that environment, fast-paced, competing demands. How do you make a priority of your own self-care? How do you set boundaries? These are the things that coaching clients come to us with all the time. So I'll start with you, Marie. What do you think?
So I'm going to refer to some research that Volkswagen in Germany conducted. And that was to highlight the benefits of disabling corporate emails after working hours. So that reduced work pressure and made people more efficient. So by doing that, employees couldn't access these emails after work, and then they were turned on again about, I think, half an hour before they started work as well. So they actually acknowledged that constant availability does not equate to productivity. So that echoes of the situation that I had with an executive, where they struggled with the messages from their mobile and just overload from messages and pinging of their messages, notifications. And they actually introduced a no calls after 7 p.m. strategy. And what they did, they had with their mobile provider, they had two different options. One was work and one was personal. So what they did with their provider, they actually asked them to switch over their mobiles to personal after work and at certain times of, the weekends as well. And so that they didn't have to have urgent calls coming in. But that also set a precedent for people to understand it would be dealt with. Anything work related can be dealt with the next day rather than after in the evenings. So that helped their stress levels and their productivity improved, because mentally they weren't overloaded with work outside of work.
Thank you. Really good. It's quite a challenge for a whole organization to do that, especially in the UK or a global firm. But it's a great tip. And I
Yeah.
know that there was something about France doing it. French, the French culture is very good at those sort of boundaries between home and life. So I think we've got something to learn from the French. Great. Jackie, what are your reflections on the question in terms of practical strategies?
Well, I'm going to talk about a lot of the work that I do with my clients, and this has gone from at the pandemic when I was working on a on-demand coaching service for GPs, GP partners, and practice managers, where actually I saw the direct results of bringing in therapeutic writing, expressive writing, and journal coaching into the work with clients. I'm thinking about, first of all, a male GP partner who had been a GP for a good number of years, worked in a really busy inner city practice, very demanding, very complex. In terms of home life, they had 2 teenage children who they weren't getting to spend a lot of time with. And he came with this issue of just having too much on his plate. He was also on various health authority boards, was a volunteer, was a governor in a school. So you could see there were lots of competing demands for his time and his energy. And I introduced him to microjournaling, and I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown of that in a moment. And the idea behind that was I got him to journal in the session. So he would journal for 3 minutes around a particular prompt. So I might say to him, how are you doing today? How are you feeling emotionally, physically? What's on your mind? But rather than speaking it, I got him to write it. Coming back to Marie's point earlier about the modeling part, the idea is that I wanted to model that in the session of how you could embody bringing in a reflective writing practice, a journaling practice into your everyday. Now, what happened was he started to have a designated journal, and every session he'd come back and he'd say, Jackie, do you know what? I just feel so much better. I've still got the same number of things to do, but it's like I'm just flushing out my ideas. I'm getting clearer. I'm getting answers and solutions to issues and concerns. And I'm finding this whole writing thing, that's how he described it, it's been really, really helpful to me. And that was the first thing. And then the second thing he said was, and you know what? My relationship with my teenagers is changing. He's managed to create more one-on-one space to spend time with his teenagers. So he actually started to have like time with his teenagers one-on-one. I'm trying to not give too much information away about the individual. And so the quality of the time that he was spending with his family also changed. So that came out of the practice of the microjournaling. So I want to leave you with some tips around how you do this. If you think about monks in a monastery, they often ring a bell when on the hour as a sign, a message to stop, to pause, to meditate. So that meditation becomes a practice. So the idea of microjournaling in terms of just thinking about having a dedicated space for doing some journaling in your busy day is that you stop for 3 minutes or 5 minutes and you do some microjournaling. And here's a couple of prompts for you. The first one I've already said, how are you feeling in this moment emotionally and physically? And you just write down your response to it. You might go onto an app. The One Day app on your iPhones is a very good journaling app. Then you might go to what are 3 good things that have happened so far in your day? Even if it's 11 o'clock, is there something that happened on the way to work? We know that in terms of calming down the body and thinking about the good stuff and being able to kind of scan your environment for the good stuff, that has a really positive impact on your emotions and your feelings. And then you might write about something that's upset or frustrated you. And then you could just say, what was it about that thing that frustrated you? And all of this is within that 3 to 5 minute frame. And I like this quote by Jeannie Wright. She says, writing spaces, no matter how short, are like a meditation. So by doing that, you are setting a boundary for yourself. You're doing self-care in the moment. And I've noticed that clients have really embraced that as a practice going forward. And we can say a little bit more about that as we go
Great
into
tips.
the
Great
conversation.
tips. Thanks so much, Jackie. Great tips on micro journaling, what it is and how to do it, and also its power. Obehi, what are some practical strategies
Can
for?
I love that, Jackie. I just love the phrase it. And I know, and I know that for all of us who are listening on the call, that there's so many strategies. So I don't want people getting overwhelmed by any of it. The idea you can't possibly try them all. It's just picking the one you think, oh, I like the sound of that, and trying it out and then seeing how it goes. So when I work with neurodiverse client, and I'm going to say specifically ADHD. This is the process that I use, and you can, and anybody else, and neurotypical can also use it. But it helps them make sense of it, and they can work out which phase they like. So we talk about energy management first. Once it's done, they now know, for example, every day between 8 and 10 are my peak hours. They're my most energetic because they happen to be morning people. That particular person does, for example. That becomes earmarked what we call focus block. We'll talk about time blocking. So time blocking isn't just picking 2 p.m. Oh yeah, here it is, boom. No, it has to match. So the first step is to work out the most energetic part of your day is dedicated to your focus. So anything that needs high level of thinking, strategy, you just need you to use your noggin is what you use that for. Okay, priority number one, which means that for some of my clients, it means that they might think, oh, everything is important. Everything is not important. Everything is in priority. But if it is, that's the block to do it in. You're more likely to do it then. Now, if you procrastinate or you're a procrastinator, because you're avoiding a particular thing because you don't want to do it, and everybody, I'm put my hand up to be one of those, you're more likely to get it done in a time that's already engineered to use your highest energy. Most of us tend to want to do it last thing because we've been sort of avoiding it, but actually that's the worst part. So you're more likely to get it done if you schedule something you've been avoiding in a high focus block. Okay, because that's one thing, which means you have 3 other blocks I want you to think about. There's what we call social blocks. This is just your energy has gone down, but you still have enough to use it. And so you might use it for things like meetings. You might use it to hang out with your family. You might use it just when you're still energetically primed to talk to people, right? And to engage with people. Because sometimes for some of us, that gets the energy back up. For others, it depletes it. So the idea is to be able to work out what suits you. Okay? So that's the second block. The third block is admin. This block is when your energy has dropped. Can't, you know when you get distracted and you're reading the same line over and over again? That's your admin block. That's the one that makes you go, right, I'm going to use it to respond to an email. Okay? And not just an email, obviously. The one that somebody said, can you meet for dinner? Yes, that's the one. Not the one where your boss has asked you to bring a report. That one needs your focus block or potentially maybe your social one. But the admin is also for your to-do list. What am I doing tomorrow? What is the priority tomorrow? That's what you use it for. Is also when I get my client to use a post-it note technique. This color, priority. It must get done today. Okay, that's the one. And then you might use this one, get done later. I think it's just a typical yellow one, like a traffic light. Think about it. And then you have this, could be done later. In other words, not priority. If you don't get to it today, totally okay. Obviously, the last thing you want is several of these on your desk. because it means you're stockpiling them. Because like I said earlier, not everything is priority. So it forces you to decide what is and what isn't. And then finally, you have a last block, what I call a recharge, which is exactly what it says on the tin. Time to go and rest. It's time to take your lunch break. Time to go for a walk. It's that time when you go, I could nap. Like if you're allowed to, you probably would nap. That's the part. And then you might not be conducive to go for a nap, but you might think, oh, my energy is low, so I need to boost it up a bit. So going for a walk might do it. Okay, having a walking meeting. Remember those afternoon meetings where after lunch everybody's slumping? That might be a time to have a mini walking meeting instead of trying to sit in a desk, for example. Okay, so that makes sense. You're trying to say whatever energy you have, they belong in certain places in your diary where possible. And the idea is to plot them there so you know to help you hold the boundaries. So if I come to you and say, hey, Jackie, can we meet at 2? And Jackie, her highest energy is at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. She cannot give away that time. What she then said is, oh, I'm so sorry, Obi, I can't do it. Can we do 4 instead? Okay, because again, productivity isn't about time. Because otherwise, like, oh, I'm free. No, you're not free. You got stuff to do. Probably one of those in that slot. So I hope that makes sense. What I'm trying to get at here is once you know it, then you can plot the rest as best as possible. So I hope that was clearer in that way. If there are any questions on it, let me know. Yeah.
Really clear and really helpful. Yeah, I think you gave some really strong tips there, as has everyone. You know, whether we can put rules around emails, even if our whole organization isn't doing it, maybe we can do it for ourselves. The idea of micro journaling and catching those moments where we can check in with ourselves, or this idea of having a bit of a color system based on our energy and based on what our body needs to be productive. And I know one of our coaches, Sabia, also gave some tips, things like actually really managing your diary and blocking out time. And it might be time to do things, not just meetings, because I think one of the things that is, it really gets in the way of our productivity is meeting after meeting after meeting. And actually, if we can block time out for activity, maybe we can manage some of those meetings and opt out of some of those meetings because we're being realistic about the work we have to do. So that blocking out time, communicating with others about what you need and how everyone else's needs are impacting you. And also this idea of compassionate communication as well. How can we be compassionate when someone says they can't take on anymore, or it's really difficult for them to be able to have the productivity that is being asked of them as well. So I think sometimes we have to push back on others. Sometimes we have to push back on ourselves about how realistic we are being in terms of our own productivity.
Could I just add one small thing here? Because I think this is such a valuable conversation. And I love those Post-it notes helping people to pinpoint where their energies are. On the issue of procrastination, I did a course recently and it just reaffirmed something and locked something in a way that I think I'd forgotten about. The teacher said that procrastination is an old brain physical and psychological response to stress. Carrying too much stress for too long, it shuts us down, and the procrastination is a way that we get to rest. So if we think about what we're here and what we're talking about today, that's a nod to we have to build in that time. So Jenny, when you said about the meetings and the activities, have a meeting for the activities, I'd say have a meeting for your thinking time, for your reflective time, for your walking time, for your downtime, because it's that rest and recovery that gives you that space to be more optimal in the way you're coming into your work.
I have to say, Jackie, brilliant. And I think one of the things you hit the nail on the head about the time there. And I know that everybody's like, oh, well, when am I supposed to do all these things? Right? But I like to think that if we all have a lunch break, and some people do have half an hour lunch, so I'm not even going to, some organizations don't get half an hour. But if you do have an hour, then I'd like you to leverage that hour where possible. So eat your lunch, go for the lunch. Don't sit on your desk right? And then eat the buffet where you can't even taste the food you just ate. So the idea, if you can earmark your hour in your day to use it, obviously you can't eat for a whole hour. So you might say, use 10 minutes, eat the actual sandwich, and then I'll go for a walk, right? And then I'll take in fresh air, then I'll do something else, and then I'll write in the journal to see how I'm feeling, to check in with myself today. You could do that. I don't expect you to find time in the round loaded hours in the day that we have. But if you are pressed for time, then narrow your what we call a well-being hour. Put it somewhere. And I always think if you use the lunchtime, most people don't have a problem with that. As opposed to someone said, I'm going to use it 3 p.m. Might be like, we have meetings then. But use a lunch hour or block it out. Don't negotiate with your lunch hour. Someone asks you for meetings, just say, no, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Now I've got plans, because you do have plans. You're not free.
Great points. And also, there's a lot of technology that can help you with these things. I use Outlook. You can ask it to put in lunch breaks. You can ask it to put in focus time. So you can use technology to really support you. Technology doesn't always have to take away your time doom scrolling, but you might want to be more aware of how you use technology as well. It should be serving us, not the other way around. So, if you find that using your phone or other technology is taking away your time and productivity, perhaps start thinking about how you can use it positively. Our time is nearly up. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I just want to make sure whether there are any questions from anyone else. I've got one more question I'd like to ask, but please do put a question in the chat if you have one. Hi, Paula. It's lovely to see you here. And Susie Lee has a great suggestion. The power of saying no with purpose. Saying no strategically isn't about shutting doors. It's about opening space for what drives impact. A great point. And Martha is reaffirming Jackie's point about procrastination. So many people beat themselves up. Better a dose of self-compassion than self-criticism. Absolutely. And Sonia, yes, we'll definitely get Jackie to share that course with you. So my final question, and we haven't got a whole 10 minutes, so if we can be reasonably brief in answering this question. We often hear about the importance of mindfulness and resilience. Can you share specific techniques or practices that have been particularly effective for your clients in managing stress and enhancing focus? So yeah, what can enhance their focus? What can help them manage stress? Are there any stories that illustrate these techniques? So we're thinking about mindfulness, resilience, managing stress, enhancing focus. Any specific techniques we have? I'll start with you this time, Obehi.
Yeah, I love this one because we talk about mindfulness all the time, don't we? It's everywhere. But the important thing I wanted to note is what the purpose of mindfulness is. The purpose is to help bring the heart rate down, to reduce your stress. That's the purpose of it. So it doesn't have to mean yoga classes and all. It sometimes can be people can overdo things. It just means that short time in the day at different intervals, like Jackie mentioned with the bell, where it reminds you to spend 3 or 5 minutes doing something. So one example I'm going to give is a client who usually stress eats. When she gets stressed, I think a lot of us can probably relate to some of that, to stress eating. And so her bite would have been a bar of chocolate. And she'd eat it, wolf it down without feeling it, thinking it. It's just a release. So what I got her to do instead is to be mindful of the chocolate itself. So in other words, wake up a square, put it in your mouth, close your eyes, and then feel the chocolate melting in your mouth, and then noticing the temptation to bite into it. The point is, as she's doing that, it's bringing the stress level down for her. That's what she noticed. Stress level down, and I don't have to need to eat the whole pack. So the point I'm trying to make here, it could be anything you want it to mean. It could be washing your hand. Every time you go to the bathroom, you can use that opportunity to wash your hand, feel the ridge as you're washing, feel the soap, smell the soap, That's as simple as it can be. It does not have to be complicated. To the point I'm trying to make it, you whatever you have. It doesn't have to be complicated at all.
Love it. Thank you. We can be mindful in every activity. And yeah, that can help us slow down. I love that. I love that insight. Marie, what are your reflections on this question?
So yeah, I love that, baby, because you can, with mindfulness, it can be a part of your everyday. And my go-to place with that is positive intelligence. So that's a technique whereby you're training your brain to shift from stress to responses to more sort of mental sort of clarity. And you can do that, Behi was saying, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever you have. So you're refocusing your brain. So it's a short sensory exercise that's going to ground your mind and bring you into that sort of present moment. So one exercise that I've used with the client is whereby they are sitting comfortably and they're closing their eyes, or they can have a soft focus to the floor. And they're thinking that they're using their ears to listen. So they will listen to auditory, they're listening to the furthest sound, focusing on that away. And then they're bringing that for a few seconds, and then they're bringing back to the sounds around them, and then they're the closest sound to them. And the closest sound to them might be their heartbeat. And once they focus and they come in and they focus on their heartbeat, and they stay there for a few seconds, that kind of resets your nervous system, and it brings your brain, it forces your brain to shift from that stress to more observational situation.
I love that. And it's one of my favorite exercises because I could be going all day and not hear my own heart beating inside my own body. And just to take that moment and think, goodness, that is happening inside me and I'm not tuning into it. It's just a real awakening and a real centering exercise. And so easy to do as well, which is really, really good.
It was so easy to do. I nearly fell asleep from the rhythm of your voice. It was so, honestly, I was like caught up in it. It felt really, and it's such a small thing to do, but so impactful. And I just loved the way that you shared that. And it's like feeling it in the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our final tip from an idea from you, please, Jackie.
Oh, I don't know. It's all been said, hasn't it? There's been so much richness on this call. But
Yeah.
I just want to bounce off the back of what Marie's just said, because, again, it's that whole-bodied experience. Recently, I got a client to breathe in the session. Just slow down, like Abehe was saying, slow down, connect with the parasympathetic, slow it down. And she realized that her breath, she wasn't breathing. She wasn't even in her body. So something like what Marie's just said about the senses, that would have been a wonderful extension of that. But what I got her to do, no, sorry.
I just wanted to, I remember we spoke previously and I know that you write for Psychology's magazine, and you were mentioning the drive and just that experience. And I wondered if you could, because there might be areas like that those listening might want to, it might go through and might appreciate differently.
Do you mean about what I said about the team?
You were saying that sort of the drive to Psychologies is a really wooded area. That's and how
right.
into spaces.
I was going to come on to that.
Sorry, okay.
No, it makes sense. I'll make it really brief. So the senses thing, Marie was doing it inside. I would take that outside. Yeah, so you're combining by going on a walk. Research at Stanford University shows that when we go walking, whether it's in an urban space with green trees, green spaces, or in a forest or a woods, it actually boosts our creativity. Yeah, it also relaxes us. It also distresses us. That's why we've got things like forest bathing, Shinrin Yoku. But the example that I was sharing with Jenny was years ago when I went to Psychology's magazine. I didn't realize they were kind of tucked away in a woods in South London. And I realized that coming out of the urban environment and driving through the woods, I felt my nervous system calm down. And by the time I got there, I was so much calmer. But even so, when it was their lunchtime, I was with the editor and lunchtime came and she said, do you want to come on a walk with us? Every lunchtime, we walk out into the fields and the hills as a team. So just thinking about your teams, you could go on a team's walk. You could find a green space in your area. You're getting so many benefits from nature, from being outside. You get better sleep when we have fresh air. Just thinking about being in the screens, in front of our screens all of the time. You're getting so many benefits from that. And, you know, if we had more time, I'd tell you more about what the research says, but definitely go for a walk.
And I have to say, one of the examples I used for me personally, when I lived in London, I'm in Manchester now, when I lived in London, I remember thinking, I'll come out of my apartment
Mm-hmm.
and I won't remember how I got to work, to do West Ham to Westminster, and I won't remember how I got there. I just know I got there. So
Yes.
I started getting myself to do this thing because I noticed as soon as I leave my flat, I'll just be phone already, and I'm probably won't, I can see feet, but I'm probably not even looking up. And you saw my arrive at work. So what I started doing, and of course it doesn't help with stress because you're still carrying it along. And what I started to do was I'll leave my flat, phone in my pocket, no headphones, because that's the other thing that would help switch you off, isn't it? Because you're not noticing things. So I started to move and I started to look up and I can decide what I'm going to look at. But that first couple of days, oh my God, the satellite dishes, I hadn't noticed them. I'd lived there for at least 8 months at that point. Didn't notice every satellite dish in the building, right? And then you know this thing when you watch a crime drama and then they're the witness, like, oh, the person wore this. Like if someone asked me, I don't remember nothing. And so so then I started thinking, I need to look at people's faces. Okay, so so that's the idea. Whatever you have, you don't have to make it pretty, you don't have to be in the woods, you don't have to go driving anywhere. On your way to your tube station or to your tram station or wherever you're going to, or you're going to decide that I'm going to look for something to look at. I'm going to notice people's faces. I'm going to notice what jacket color they're wearing.
Can I give
I'm
you a
going to,
really...
I'm going to stop you all. I'm really sorry.
yeah.
We've just
Sorry,
run
sorry.
out of time.
Oh,
As
wow.
everyone can hear, we have a very passionate group of coaches.
Of course we are.
They've got so much more to offer, and that's why we have these sessions. Please look them up. They are on our diverse executive coach directory. You can have one-to-one conversations with Marie, with Obehi, with Jackie. They could become your coach. Imagine how powerful that would be. They've given us so much wisdom today. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's been great, and I'm hoping everyone's taken takeaways away. Beverly is buying some chocolates for her team, and they're going to engage in some mindfulness.
Lovely.
Garrett has suggests quick one-to-one meetings, slow down when creating the meeting, and paradoxically, things will be better. Every meeting invitation must have the following information: desired income, type of meeting agenda, contributions, who comes to what, and also what's the return on your time expected. Isn't that lovely? Not return on your investment or money, return on my time that I'm investing. Love that, Garrett. Really, really impressive. Sonia says thank you. Junior says it was the best way to spend his lunch break. Martha Cuffey has really resonated with the idea of Shinyin Yaku, and does it in Dominica and Kew Garden. Janice, always lovely to hear from you. Joined for the last 5 minutes and has taken away a lot in that short space of time. So thank you so much. She's valued the expertise. Paula found it a fantastic session and is taking away so many mindful tips. Susie Lee says, when stress arises, acknowledge it by naming the emotion. I feel overwhelmed, I'm frustrated.
Nice.
What is it I can control versus what's not in my control? That's one of my favorite things, actually, that circle of control. And focus your energy on controllable factors. Lots of people saying they really found it valuable, great conversation, happy that they were included. And Tanya, my colleague Tanya, I want to say thank you for managing the chat as always so beautifully. But also Tanya's added our next webinar, which is coming up. I think you may have put the incorrect link, Tanya. I think you've put the link to this webinar. But just to let you know, we have a webinar coming up in April, and we'd love to see you there. And it's focused on AI and coaching. So we want to say a huge thank you to everyone. We've posted a few links and a few resources. This webinar will just stay on LinkedIn, so you can share it with other people and who you think will find it valuable inside and outside of your organization. Really pleased to have you here, and thank you for sharing your lunch with us. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.